Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling the immense data volumes, the transaction life cycles, and just the sheer complexity that powers modern insurance operations. I mean, if you've ever wondered how major insurance companies keep everything from billing to complex claims running smoothly without it all collapsing into total chaos, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're decoding the absolute backbone of these massive operations. We're talking about the Guidewire Data Model.
There's a great quote that says, if you work with Guidewire and don't understand its data model, you're essentially navigating a city without a map. And honestly, that hits the nail right on the head. We're going to treat this notoriously complex data model exactly like a city's master blueprint. Whether you're a developer writing code, an architect designing solutions, or an analyst just trying to make sense of the whole system, understanding this model means you can build, navigate, and troubleshoot with absolute confidence. Because let's face it, you wouldn't try to build a skyscraper without looking at the zoning map, right?
So to keep us oriented, here is our map for this explainer. First, the insurance blueprint. Then, core entities and relationships. Next, identity versus ownership. After that, the specialized centers. Then, customization and guardrails. And finally, mastering the model. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the insurance blueprint, which is basically the master plan of the Guidewire ecosystem. Now, the Guidewire ecosystem is massive, and it utilizes what we call domain-driven design. This means the model is split into two distinct perspectives. First, you've got the logical model. That represents the actual business concepts, the stuff underwriters and adjusters care about day to day. And second, there's the physical model, which represents the actual database tables and columns under the hood. Guidewire is actually incredibly clever here. It hides a lot of that complex physical database plumbing from users, so teams can focus purely on the business logic. But why does the specific blueprint matter so much? Well, unlike generic enterprise data models you might see in other industries, Guidewire's is heavily insurance-specific. It reflects literally decades of deep industry knowledge. It ensures consistency across all the modules, guarantees the accuracy of every single transaction, provides rock-solid traceability for regulatory audits, and delivers scalability as the business grows. Think about traceability for just a second. If a state auditor comes knocking, a lack of clear historical data could lead to millions of dollars in fines. No joke. So without this specific blueprint guaranteeing consistency and traceability, even the slickest user interface would instantly collapse under the weight of real-world enterprise complexity. Moving right along to Section 2, core entities and relationships, or as we like to call them, the buildings and roads. Sticking with our city metaphor here, entities are basically the foundational buildings. An entity maps directly to a tangible insurance concept. You have your core structures, things like accounts, policies, claims, and contacts. But it also goes way deeper into detailed components like exposures and transactions. Every single piece of data stored in Guidewire lives inside one of these structured entities, which gives it a rigid, reliable home. Now, the crucial point here is that relationships act as the roads connecting these buildings together. And let me tell you, Guidewire enforces very strict traffic laws on these roads using parent-child dependencies. A policy simply cannot exist without an account, period. A claim cannot exist without a policy or an exposure. By using foreign keys, which you can think of as the digital superglue holding different records together, Guidewire enforces strict ownership. This prevents orphan records and ensures total data consistency across the board. Absolutely nothing in this city exists in a vacuum. Sitting right at the absolute center of this whole ecosystem are policies. But here's the truly fascinating part. The data model treats a policy not as a single static record, but as a living, evolving, versioned object. Every single time a policy goes through its life cycle, say it moves from an initial submission and quote to an endorsement where you add a newly licensed teenage driver, to a yearly renewal or even a premium audit, an entirely new policy period is created. This specific architectural design is exactly what allows Guidewire to maintain perfect historical accuracy and effortlessly support those incredibly complex, effective data changes that regulators demand. All right, on to Section 3, identity versus ownership. This is a very crucial intersection. This right here is where developers and analysts often crash if they don't understand how Guidewire separates data. I'm talking about the hard separation between an account and a contact. An account represents a business relationship. It is the ultimate owner of the policies. A contact, on the other hand, represents the actual human being or organization. And this separation, it's a highly critical design decision. By using special linking entities, like an account contact, a single contact can be seamlessly tied to multiple accounts and policies in totally different roles. For example, you might have one person acting as a driver on a personal auto policy and acting as a broker on an entirely different commercial account. This brilliantly prevents massive data duplication across the entire system. It's a real game changer. Next up, Section 4, the specialized centers, which act as our distinct product districts. What's really cool here is that each center has its own highly specialized data model tailored perfectly to its primary function within the broader city. Now, they all share common foundational concepts, but they drill down into incredibly specific needs. PolicyCenter is completely obsessed with underwriting, focusing heavily on submissions, risk assessment, and coverages. BillingCenter, that's entirely built around auditability and strict financial integrity. It meticulously tracks every invoice, payment, and charge so that every single dollar is mathematically accounted for. And then you have ClaimCenter, which is built to handle the often chaotic and unpredictable life cycle of a claim. It manages exposures, sets reserves, and even handles litigation and subrogation, which is just the legal process of recovering costs from an at-fault third party, often spanning over several years. Let's turn to Section 5, Customization and Guardrails, or our system's zoning laws. Because no two insurers operate exactly alike, out-of-the-box solutions are rarely enough. But listen closely, because if there is one core concept you burn into your memory from today's explainer, let it be this: never modify base entities directly. Seriously, if Guidewire gives you a base entity, you leave the core code completely alone. Instead, you use what are called extensions. Extensions let you safely add custom fields, create entirely new custom entities, or establish new relationships. Why such a strict rule? Well, touching the base code is strictly forbidden unless, you happen to enjoy watching your entire system absolutely shatter into a million pieces during a future Guidewire version upgrade. Extensions are designed specifically to be upgrade safe. Furthermore, to keep the data incredibly clean, Guidewire relies heavily on typelists and robust validations. Now, typelists are just predefined lists of reference data. Think of a drop-down menu for policy status or claim type. They prevent dangerous hard coding and ensure absolute consistency. Combine that with declarative and scripted validations, which act a lot like automated bouncers checking IDs at every single door of our city's buildings, and you effectively block invalid, corrupt, or incomplete data from ever entering the system. The guardrails are high and they are remarkably strong. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Mastering the Model, Keeping Our City Running. A data model of this colossal size requires some serious upkeep. You absolutely must have proper database indexing to handle exceptionally high-volume queries efficiently. You also need well-thought-out strategies for querying and eventually archiving old data. And on the security front, because insurance data is so highly sensitive and personally identifiable, the model fully supports role-based access, granular field-level permissions, and strict audit tracking. Let me be clear. Ignoring the physical data model's performance will inevitably lead to end users staring at endlessly loading slow screens, overnight batch processes failing, and massive compliance nightmares with strict regulations like GDPR. So, how do we avoid those nightmares? Well, by keeping your extensions minimal and highly purposeful, by following the established naming conventions strictly, by documenting every single change you make to the architecture, and by always reviewing the data impacts before you begin any actual development. It's actually quite common to hear complaints about a steep learning curve or dangerous over-customization in Guidewire, but the reality is, those are process problems, not platform limitations. Strict governance is absolutely essential to keeping the city running smoothly. Which brings us to a final question for you to ponder today. Will you treat this powerful data model as a carefully planned, shared asset, or just a chaotic playground? Mastering the data dictionary and understanding this underlying architecture isn't just an optional extra for your IT career. It is the ultimate